300 pounds of destruction. Just learned that actions have consequences. Triple H just made the most shocking decision of his tenure as WWE's chief content officer. Bronson Reed has been fired. And the wrestling world will never be the same. What's happening? Wrestling vs. Family. Welcome back to the channel. And if you're just joining us, make sure you hit that subscribe button and smash the notification bell because what we're covering today is absolutely monumental. Triple H just dropped a bombshell that nobody saw coming. After the brutal assault that left Jey Uso in critical condition, after 6 devastating tsunamis that may have ended a career, after the most vicious attack we've seen in years, Bronson Reed has been terminated from WWE. Fired. Released. Gone. This isn't a suspension. This isn't a storyline punishment. According to everything we're seeing and hearing, this is a legitimate termination. And the implications of this decision are going to shake WWE to its foundation. We're going to break down why this happened, what it means for everyone involved, and where the company goes from here. This is massive, so let's dive in. Let's start with the context, because to understand why Triple H made this decision, we need to understand the magnitude of what Bronson Reed did to Jey Uso. We're talking about an assault that went far beyond the boundaries of acceptable competition. 6 top rope splashes on a defenseless opponent. Medical personnel rushing to the scene. Jey Uso being stretchered out in critical condition with potential life-altering injuries. This wasn't a match that got out of hand. This was calculated, sustained brutality that crossed every line professional wrestling has. In the immediate aftermath, fans were divided. Some saw it as Bronson finally making the impact he'd been fighting for his entire career. Others saw it as reckless endangerment that had no place in modern wrestling. But what nobody expected was Triple H taking the nuclear option. A complete termination. Not a fine. Not a suspension. Not a demotion to developmental. Fired. When the announcement came down, the wrestling world collectively gasped. Because this isn't how WWE typically handles these situations. Usually, there's a cooling off period. Maybe a kayfabe suspension that leads to a grudge match. Maybe some storyline consequences that build toward a massive payoff. But a complete release from the company. That's unprecedented for something that happened as part of programming. So why did Triple H make this call? What would drive WWE's chief content officer to fire someone in the middle of what could have been one of the hottest storylines of the year? First and foremost, we have to talk about liability and responsibility. WWE is a publicly traded company. They have sponsors. They have partnerships. They have a corporate image to maintain. When one of your performers puts another in critical condition, even within the scripted confines of sports entertainment, that creates real-world problems. There are insurance considerations, legal liabilities, medical costs, the potential for Jey Uso's family to take legal action if his injuries end his career. WWE can't be seen as condoning the level of violence that Bronson inflicted, even if it was all planned and choreographed, because it sets a dangerous precedent. Second, and this is crucial, Triple H has been very vocal about wanting to change the culture within WWE. He wants a locker room that respects the business, respects each other, and understands that this is a marathon, not a sprint. What Bronson did, regardless of whether it was approved beforehand, represents everything Triple H is trying to move away from. The days of performers working hurt, of dangerous stunts being encouraged, of guys trying to one-up each other with increasingly risky maneuvers, Triple H wants that mentality gone. By firing Bronson Reed, he's sending a message to the entire roster. Your career longevity and your colleagues' safety are more important than any moment, any storyline, any push you think you deserve. Third, there's the real possibility that what Bronson did wasn't fully sanctioned. Maybe he was supposed to hit 1 or 2 tsunamis and he went into business for himself. Maybe he was supposed to pull his weight more and he went full force. Maybe he was supposed to check on Jey between impacts and he didn't. If Bronson went off script in a way that genuinely endangered Jey's life, then Triple H had no choice but to terminate him immediately. Now let's talk about what this means for Bronson Reed, because regardless of how you feel about what he did, this is a career-altering moment. Bronson has spent years building himself into one of the most impressive big men in professional wrestling. His athleticism, his agility for a man his size, his ability to tell stories in the ring, all of that is undeniable. He was finally starting to get the recognition he deserved. He was becoming a talked about name. He was entering that upper tier conversation. And now it's all gone. One decision, one assault, one moment of going too far, and his WWE career is over. The question everyone's asking is, can Bronson Reed recover from this? Is his career in professional wrestling finished, or can he rebuild somewhere else? Here's the harsh reality. Being fired from WWE for legitimately injuring another performer is not a good look. Other promotions are going to be hesitant to bring in someone who has that reputation. They're going to worry about liability. They're going to worry about locker room morale. They're going to worry that Bronson might do something similar to one of their stars. Sure, there are always companies willing to take chances on controversial figures. There are promotions that would love the buzz of signing someone WWE just fired. But those opportunities come with conditions and scrutiny that Bronson may not be prepared for. And let's be honest, Bronson was on the verge of something special in WWE. He was this close to breaking through to that main event level. And he threw it all away because he couldn't control himself, or because he thought going to extremes was the only way to stand out. The tragic irony is that Bronson wanted attention and recognition so badly that he destroyed the platform that could have given him both. He wanted to be remembered as a monster, as a destroyer, as someone who couldn't be ignored. And he got that. But now he's remembered as the guy who got fired for taking things too far. For Jey Uso, this termination doesn't undo the damage that was done. Jey is still fighting to recover. He's still dealing with the physical trauma, the medical complications, the uncertainty about when or if he can return to the ring. But there has to be some measure of justice in knowing that the person who put him in this position faced real consequences. Not storyline consequences. Not pretend punishment that leads to a big match down the road. Real, career-ending consequences. Jey's family, the bloodline, the entire locker room that respects and cares about him, they all wanted accountability. And Triple H delivered that accountability in the most definitive way possible. Does that help Jey heal faster? No. Does it prevent the next potential injury? Maybe. Does it send a message that WWE takes performer safety seriously under Triple H's leadership? Absolutely. For Jey, the focus now shifts entirely to recovery and rehabilitation. There's no revenge tour to plan because the person who attacked him is gone. There's no grudge match to build toward because Bronson Reed is no longer employed by WWE. Jey can focus purely on getting healthy and deciding what his future looks like without the distraction of an ongoing feud. That might actually be better for Jey in the long run. Instead of being pressured to come back early to settle a score, instead of feeling obligated to put his body through more trauma for a storyline payoff, Jey can take all the time he needs and return only when he's truly ready. The locker room reaction to Bronson's firing is going to be fascinating, and it's going to reveal a lot about the culture Triple H is trying to build. On one hand, there are probably performers who feel vindicated. The veterans who've been preaching about working safe, about protecting your opponent, about the business being a marathon, they're probably relieved that Triple H is backing up his words with actions. They're probably thinking that this sends exactly the right message to younger, hungrier performers who might be tempted to take shortcuts to stand out. On the other hand, there might be performers who are nervous. Because if Bronson Reed can be fired for going too far in a worked situation, what does that mean for everyone else? Where's the line? How do you know when you've crossed it? Wrestling is inherently physical and dangerous. Accidents happen. Injuries occur even when everyone's working safely. Is every stiff shot, every botched move, every accidental injury now grounds for termination? That uncertainty could actually be a good thing. It forces everyone to be more mindful, more careful, more communicative with their opponents. It reinforces that this is a collaborative art form where everyone's responsible for everyone else's well-being. But it could also create a culture of fear where performers are afraid to take risks, afraid to have hard-hitting matches, afraid to push boundaries in ways that create memorable moments. That's the tightrope Triple H has to walk now. Maintaining safety without sacrificing the intensity and realism that makes wrestling compelling. From a business and creative standpoint, Bronson's firing creates some immediate challenges for WWE. There were almost certainly plans in place for Bronson. Whether it was a long-term feud with Jey, a path toward a championship, involvement with other storylines, all of that now has to be scrapped and rewritten. That's not easy when you're producing hours of weekly content and building toward major premium live events. Creative teams now have to scramble. They have to figure out how to address Bronson's absence in storylines he was part of. They have to find new opponents for people who were scheduled to face him. They have to potentially rethink entire narrative arcs that were built around his presence. But here's the thing. WWE has dealt with unexpected roster changes before. Injuries, releases, personal issues, the show always goes on. And sometimes, the solutions creative comes up with in response to unexpected changes end up being better than the original plans. Maybe Bronson's firing opens the door for someone else to step into that monster heel role. Maybe it creates an opportunity for a younger performer who wasn't getting a shot. Maybe it allows storylines to go in directions they couldn't have gone with Bronson still on the roster. The immediate disruption is challenging, but WWE has the depth and the creative resources to adapt. What matters more is whether this firing represents a genuine shift in company philosophy or if it's a one-time response to an extreme situation. Let's talk about the bigger picture here, because this isn't just about Bronson Reed and Jey Uso. This is about what kind of wrestling company WWE wants to be moving forward. Under Vince McMahon's leadership, there was often a do whatever it takes mentality. Push through injuries, work hurt, take risks, create moments that people will talk about forever, even if those moments come at a physical cost. That mentality produced some incredible wrestling, but it also destroyed bodies and shortened careers. Triple H has been vocal about wanting to change that culture. He's talked about giving performers more recovery time. He's emphasized long-term thinking over short-term spectacle. He's trying to build a system where wrestlers can have long, healthy careers instead of burning out in their 30s. Firing Bronson Reed is the most dramatic statement yet that Triple H is serious about this philosophy. He's willing to sacrifice a rising star, willing to disrupt creative plans, willing to take heat from fans who wanted to see where the Bronson storyline went, all because performer safety is non-negotiable. That's either going to be remembered as the moment WWE truly committed to a safer, more sustainable approach to sports entertainment, or it's going to be seen as an overreaction that set a problematic precedent. We won't know which until we see how consistently this standard is applied going forward. So where do we go from here? What happens next in the aftermath of this shocking termination? For WWE, the focus shifts to supporting Jey Uso's recovery and making sure the roster understands the expectations going forward. There will probably be additional safety meetings, refreshers on working protocols, maybe even new policies about how certain high-risk maneuvers are approved and monitored. For Bronson Reed, it's about figuring out his next move. Does he try to rebuild his reputation on the independent scene? Does he seek opportunities in other major promotions? Does he take time to reflect on what happened and come back with a different approach? His talent is undeniable, but his reputation has taken a massive hit, and repairing that is going to take time and genuine change. For Jey Uso, it's about healing, physically and mentally. The road back from what he went through is long, but when he does return, he's going to be celebrated as someone who survived one of the most vicious assaults in WWE history and came back stronger. For the wrestling industry as a whole, this is a case study. Other promotions are watching how WWE handles this. They're considering their own policies and protocols. They're thinking about how they would respond if something similar happened on their watch. Here's what we know for certain: wrestling vs. family. Triple H just drew a line in the sand. He made it clear that there are consequences for going too far, even in a business built on pushing limits. He chose safety and responsibility over storyline momentum and controversial buzz. Whether you agree with the decision or not, you have to respect the commitment it represents. Triple H is building the WWE he wants to lead, and that WWE doesn't have room for performers who put others in critical condition, regardless of how talented they are or how much potential they have. Bronson Reed's career with WWE is over. His legacy is complicated at best. And the entire wrestling world just learned that under Triple H's leadership, nobody is too valuable to fire if they cross certain lines. That's a powerful message. And it's one that's going to echo through locker rooms across the wrestling industry for years to come. What's your take? Wrestling vs. family. Did Triple H make the right call firing Bronson Reed, or should WWE have found another way to handle this? What does this mean for how wrestling is going to be presented going forward? And can Bronson Reed ever recover from this career-defining moment? Drop all your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. If this breakdown gave you new perspective on this developing situation, show some love with that like button and share this video with your wrestling friends who are trying to make sense of everything. Subscribe to Wrestling vs. CC if you're not already part of the family, and hit those notifications so you never miss when major stories like this break. I'm your host, and this is Wrestling vs. CC, where we go beyond the headlines to understand what's really happening in professional wrestling. Until next time, remember, actions have consequences, even in sports entertainment. And sometimes those consequences change everything.